Okay, let's work on testing this set status functionality. So the first test I'm going to write is just checking if this isAdmin function works correctly. So let's make that a unit test. Make test user test, make a unit test. And I think I had a user test initially, but then I removed it. So let's go here. And actually, I'm going to grab this stuff from the other test. So let's go ahead and replace this. Let's use refresh database. And let's go ahead and write that test. Let's say can check if user is an admin. So let's make a user and let's make sure their email is an admin. So user factory create, or we can use make here and just store it in memory. So let's try that instead. Name, say Andre, and email is an admin email. So in this case, my email. Okay. And let's make another user as well, which does not have an admin email. So let's say user B, and let's just change this to some other email that's not an admin. Okay. And let's make sure to add the semicolon. And we can just make some assertions here. So this assert true user is admin, and assert false user B is admin. Okay, let's try this. And it does work. So just to make sure, let me just change my email here, and this should fail. And it does. Cool. Okay. Now let's go ahead and make a feature test to test the Livewire component. So make test. Let's call it admin set status test. And it's a feature test. Okay. Admin set status test. And let's go ahead and use refresh database as always. And let's remove this one and write our own. So the first one is to test if the Livewire component renders if we're an admin, and we'll have another one to check if it doesn't render if we're not an admin. So show page contains set status Livewire component when user is admin. So as always, I'm just going to paste some setup in here. Okay, so I pasted in some setup. Let's import user category and status and ID as well. So we have a user that is an admin. We have some categories, we have a status, and we have an idea. So let's go ahead and test this. So in this case, we are an admin, so we are logged in. So acting as user. Let's go ahead and go to the show page. So route idea.show. And we're going to the idea, and we just have to assert that that Livewire component exists because we are an admin. Assert C Livewire, and the component name is set status. Okay. So let's go ahead and test this out, and it does pass. So let's try the opposite case. So we can just duplicate this and change the name. Okay. So show page does not contain set status Livewire component when user is not admin. So let's change the user's email. So let's just say user@user.com. And then acting as user, go to this page and assert don't see Livewire. So assert that we don't see this component because this user is not an admin. Okay, and we are at green. All right, next test I'm gonna write is to check if the status is set correctly once we visit the page. So it's considering, and we have the correct radio button selected for this status. So let's say initial status is set correctly. And again, I'll paste in some setup. So again, setup is pretty much the same, but I'm using a new status here, status considering. So ID is 2. Okay, and let's go ahead and test this component. So we'll use Livewire here. So Livewire test, or acting as first. So this is an admin, and let's go ahead and test it. So test the set status component. Okay, and that takes in a param of an idea. So let's pass that through. Okay. So all we want to assert is that that status is set correctly. So assert set. So if you don't remember, let's go to that. So set status. So status is being set right here, and that comes from the idea that's being passed through. So the idea that's being passed through is this one. The status is this one. So assert set status, and we can grab it from the variable, or we can just hard code it. I'll grab it from the variables. So status considering ID. And let's go ahead and import Livewire. And let's test this out. And we are not passing. I think I have to import set status. Let's try that again. And we are passing now. Okay, one more test here, and that's to test if we can actually set the status. So let's say can set status correctly. Okay, and let me paste in some setup. So basically the same thing. We're starting off on status considering right here. So ID 2, and then I'm going to change it to ID 3. So let's do that. I'm going to grab this here and let's paste that in here. Okay, and let's get rid of this. Let's set the status to the new status. So status in progress ID. So this would be the equivalent of just selecting one of these new statuses, and then we want to hit update, and then that would be just to call the set status method. So we can call set status. Okay, and let's go back to that component. So this updates the actual idea and it emits this event. So let's assert that the event is emitted. So we can do assert emitted status was updated. Okay, so let's try this out first, and it does pass. And then after this Livewire test, we can check if the database is correct. So this would be checking if the status was updated on the idea correctly. So we can do this assert database has, or you can just work with the model directly if you want, but I'll just use this. So we're checking the ideas table, and we want to check if there is an ID of idea ID. Okay, and the status ID of that idea should be the new status, or the new status. So status in progress ID, because that's what we changed it to. Okay, so let's see if this works. It does. Let's run our entire test suite again to make sure we didn't break anything else. Test parallel. And everything looks good. So as always, let's make a commit. This is episode 33. Git commit episode 33 admin set status test.